Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are. And thank you again for joining us for another Sharks for Kids and partnered with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants Google Hangouts, where we're going to be talking to women in shark science. I'm Leanne Wynn with Sharks for Kids. And today we are going to be talking with Andrea Kroetz, who graduated from the University of South Alabama with a doctorate in marine science and immediately started a postdoctorate research with NOAA on smalltooth sawfish. So we're going to hear about sawfish in addition to lots of other species. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Andrea.
Hello, everybody. Can everyone hear me? Thumbs up if you can hear me okay. I see. All right, good. Okay. Well, thank you all for joining me this morning. I am very excited to be here and to talk to you about my research. This is something I'm very passionate about. I love to talk about it, and talking to the public about my research is very important. So I'm very excited to be here, and I'm going to get started. I'm going to share a PowerPoint presentation with you. Hopefully everyone can see that. Leanne, can everyone see that?
Yes, we're all good.
Perfect. Okay. All right. So just a little bit of background about myself. I am originally from Illinois, and I went to undergraduate school at the University of Illinois. So for those of you who are in landlocked states and don't live by the ocean, that's perfectly fine. If you have an interest in marine science, it is still possible to go that route, and I'm a great example of that. So after I finished my undergraduate work, I did a series of marine science internships. I did one in the Turks and Caicos Islands, and then I did one at the Dauphin Island Sea Lab in Alabama. And those internships were really great because it really solidified for me that marine science was the career that I wanted to go into. So after those internships, I started my PhD program at the University of South Alabama, where I graduated in 2015 with a PhD in marine science. Since then, I immediately started my postdoctoral research at the NOAA Fisheries in Panama City. It's the National Marine Fisheries Service. It is also through the National Research Council, and I've been doing research on smalltooth sawfish for the past 3 years. So what is it that I do? I am a fisheries biologist and ecologist. And what this means is that I'm interested in how fish interact with other fish and the roles that they play in their environments. So this includes research on the movements of fish, their migration patterns, predator-prey relationships, trophic relationships, and this means who eats who in a food web, and age and growth. So as you can see from these photos, I mostly work with sharks and rays, but I also work with some bony fish such as turtle. The research that I've been focusing on the last 3 years has been smalltooth sawfish, and that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. So what exactly is a sawfish? Is it a fish? Is it a shark? Is it a ray? What do you think of when you think of a sawfish? Well, some of you, if maybe not most of you, probably think of this as a sawfish, but this is actually a swordfish, which is something very, very different from what a sawfish is. A sawfish is an Elasmobranch, which means it belongs to a group of cartilaginous fish. So if you feel your nose and if you feel your earlobe, that is cartilage, and that is what makes up the skeleton of these fish. So here we have a mako shark right here, and we have some rays. These are all cartilaginous fish or elasmobranchs. Now, a swordfish, which is the photo I just showed you, is something different. That is a bony fish, which means that the skeleton is made of bone. So that's a key difference between teleost, which is the same thing as bony fish, and elasmobranchs, which are cartilaginous fish. So sawfish can often be confused with a species of shark due to their similar body structures, but they're actually more closely related to rays. So the underside of sawfish contain nostrils, gills, and they have these mouths that dome thousands of these little dome-shaped teeth, which hopefully you can see up here in this upper right-hand corner. And these teeth are used to crush their prey, which include fish and crustaceans like crabs and shrimp. So these photos show you what a smalltooth sawfish looks like. And here you can see the gills on the underside. these are the nares. And because a sawfish is closely related to the ray, it sits on the bottom or the benthos. And for this to happen, they have these structures called spiracles, which are these big open circles right here behind the eyes. So these spiracles pump water over the gills and allows the sawfish to breathe while resting on the bottom. Now, there is a species of shark called a saw shark, which is on the top photo here, but it is different from a sawfish. So maybe you can look at the photos and remember from things I just told you about differences in rays and sharks. And what stands out to you about these two photos? So to me, what drives the difference between these two species is sharks have their gills on the side of their bodies here, whereas sawfish, which is closely related to a ray, have their gills on the ventral or the bottom side of their bodies. Something different also between a saw shark and a sawfish is these barbels right here. So saw sharks have these two barbels coming off of this long nose, whereas sawfish don't have that. And saw sharks also have lots of very sharp pointed teeth, whereas sawfish have more broad and stronger teeth. So what is the saw in a sawfish? So the saw-like nose is actually called a rostrum. And the rostrum have many large and sharp teeth, and it kind of looks like a saw, which is how this fish got its name. So the rostrum is unique in that you can identify different species of sawfish by the shape of the rostrum, by the number of teeth, and by the spacing of the teeth. And here, these are photos of a smalltooth sawfish. This is from a very large adult. This is probably from a 13-foot adult. And then this one is from a 2-foot juvenile. And you can see how very sharp and pointed these teeth are compared to the larger ones that have more broad, thicker teeth. So this is a really great infographic by the Sawfish Conservation Society, and you can visit their website to download these infographics if you want some more information. But sawfish use their rostrums to detect prey through electroreception. So just like sharks, sawfish have these tiny pores on their rostrum called ampullae of Lorenzini, and these pores can detect electrical signals from fish. So the sawfish can detect their prey that might be hiding in the benthos, like crabs and shrimp like to bury in the mud and sand, and they can use it to detect these prey and then eventually eat them. So the way they can do this is that if there's a school of fish or if there's even just a single fish around, that sawfish can sway its rostrum from side to side very quickly and can actually hit the fish and stun it. That way the sawfish can come back around and eat the sawfish or eat the prey. Sawfish also use their rostrum to protect themselves from predators like sharks and crocodiles. There have been photographs showing that crocodiles do eat sawfish, but that is just the way the food web works. And here's a photo that I took last week, and this is just showing that there is a fish scale stuck on the tooth of this sawfish. So very recently, the sawfish had a nice, tasty meal of a fish. So sawfish can grow to be quite large. Some species get up to 7 meters, which is about 23 feet long, which is huge for a fish. Something even more interesting is that rostrum, that long nose with all the teeth on it, can make up 20 to 28% of the total body length. So to put this in perspective, if you have a 20-foot sawfish, that rostrum alone can be about 5 feet. So most of you are probably about that tall, about 5 feet. So that is how long and how big that rostrum is, which can be pretty intimidating when you see it in person. So throughout the world, there are 5 species of sawfish, and all of these are listed as either endangered or critically endangered. Now, in the United States, there is only 1 species of sawfish, and this is the smalltooth sawfish. And this is a great photo of this animal. The scientific name for smalltooth sawfish is Pristis pectinata. And this is the species of sawfish that I do my research on because it's the only species currently that we have in the United States. So sawfish are one of the most threatened group of fishes, and this is due mainly to fishing, which is often a result of entanglement in nets and fishing gear. And you can see that from these photos. This is a trawling net for shrimp, and you can see, since, again, as I told you, sawfish are closely related to rays, so they lay or sit and rest on the bottom. These shrimp trawls come along and they snatch these sawfish up from the bottom, and because sawfish have all of those teeth, they very easily get caught in the holes in the nets. It makes it very difficult for sawfish to escape. So oftentimes sawfish don't survive these trawling events, which has really contributed to the decline in their numbers. Sawfishes can mature very slowly. Some reach a total length of, again, 7 meters or about 23 feet, and they only give birth to a small number of pups. The baby sawfish are called pups, and this makes them very vulnerable to overfishing. So when you take animals like this out of an ecosystem and there's a slow replacement of the population, it can mean bad news for a species, and that is the case of the smalltooth sawfish. So historically, the range of sawfish in the U.S. used to be all the way throughout the Gulf of Mexico. So all the way over here, even as far over as Texas, and then up the East Coast. And there has been records as far up as New York up here. So if you look at this map and you think that sawfish used to be all over here, where they are currently is within this red box. And this is again due to fishing and habitat loss. So why is the research that I do important? So because sawfish are a critically endangered species, we need to know everything we can about them so that we can correctly manage them and help the population to recover. So the research that I do focuses on habitat use and the abundance of the juvenile smalltooth sawfish, so the little babies, as well as movement and migration patterns of these smaller sawfish. So if we know where sawfish spend most of their time during their various life stages, we can help protect their habitat, which can then help in the population recovery. So one way to find where sawfish are is to simply catch them. And this is one part of the research that I do, is I run a field survey that looks at the abundance and distribution of juvenile smalltooth sawfish. So what we do is every month we go down to the Everglades National Park in South Florida, and we set our gill nets with our special permits that we have. And this is a photo of a sawfish that we caught in a gill net here. Again, you can see how easy these sawfish get entangled in nets, and that's because of their sharp teeth and on their long rostrum. So what we do is we safely we cut the sawfish out of the net very safely. And we take a series of measurements. We measure the length of the sawfish, we count its teeth, and then we put these tags in it. So if we ever catch, or if anyone ever happens to maybe accidentally catch a sawfish, there is a telephone number on these tags that they can call us and let us know. So once we've taken all of this information, we set the sawfish free and hope that they survive, and maybe we can catch them again later when they are a little bit bigger. Another great way to determine what habitat sawfish use is through acoustic telemetry. And this is a great way that researchers can collect data, and this is movement data, so migration and movement patterns of fish, without having to physically be present to track the fish. And right up here in the left-hand photo, this is a great picture and an infographic to show you how acoustic telemetry works. So down here, these are acoustic tags, and the batteries of these tags, this one can last 10 years, and then this one can last 5 years. So that's a very long time for these tags. So these tags give off these little sonic or these electronic pulses, these pings, and each one of these tags is coded with a unique ID number. So when these tags are either implanted internally inside of fish, or you can attach them to the outside of fish, like these cobia in here, these fish, or these tags, can be detected by these underwater listening stations called receivers or hydrophones. And this is a photo of what a hydrophone looks like. So these underwater listening stations, we have these placed throughout the area that we tag sawfish. And when a sawfish that has one of these tags in it passes nearby one of these receivers can log that data. So the receiver will store the tag information and the date and time of when that animal passed by the receiver. And then we, as researchers, can come at a later date and time and download that data and see where these sawfish have been moving. And here are some photos of downloading in the field. So again, here are the receivers. And this is really cool because we can use a Bluetooth function to download the data. So Bluetooth, like you would have in your cell phone. This little key right here is the Bluetooth. And so I can download the data from this receiver directly to my computer, and I can see when the sawfish have been near our hydrophones and at what date and time that has happened. So to attach these tags, we have a permit to do internal tagging. So these are a series of photos of me doing some surgery on sawfish. So just like sharks, when you turn a sawfish over on its back, they go into tonic immobility. So basically it's like putting sawfish to sleep. So during the surgery, they don't feel anything. They usually don't even make a move. So we make a small, tiny little incision in the abdomen. We insert the tag, and then I sew the sawfish up. And then these sutures will eventually dissolve and fall out of the sawfish. And then we have these tags in these sawfish between 5 and 10 years, which is really, really great and phenomenal because, again, as a critically endangered species, we're not exactly sure where these animals are moving and where they're going. And because these tags because these tags can last for so long, we can get an idea of the different habitats that they are using at different life stages. And here's just a couple of more photos of doing surgery. Again, these sawfish, we tag the juveniles, so they are only about 4 to 5 feet long that we tag. And then here is a map. So in Greater Florida right here, this is the area. This is part of the critical habitat of smalltooth sawfish, and this is where the population has been depressed. And so each one of these red circles indicates a place where we have one of those underwater listening stations. And as you can see, the Everglades, this is just one part of the Everglades, is a huge, huge area. And we're doing our best to get receivers all over the place, but we have them in areas where we have tagged sawfish. And even if our receivers don't pick up sawfish, we are in collaboration with other researchers all over the country. And the way we do this is through 2 networks, the FACT network and the iTag network. So there are hundreds and hundreds of researchers all throughout the country that are tagging fish and lobsters and other animals, and they are tracking them. So they all have those underwater listening stations in place. And these are just maps of all the different listening stations that are around. So even if we don't pick up our sawfish, other researchers might pick up sawfish, and we have also picked up other researchers' fish. So this collaboration and working with each other is a really great way for us to get our data and then for us to share other researchers' data that we collect for them. So this is just a quick little graph of the telemetry data that we have. So another part of being a scientist, it's not just the fun field work. You also have to do some lab work and some data management and analysis. And this is a result of this. So on the x-axis, this is the date and time, or the date, I'm sorry. And then on the y here, we have the different station names. And each one of these x's is a unique detection from a sawfish. And this plot came from only having tagged, let's see, we've probably tagged about 30 sawfish to date. And this plot comes from about 3 months' time. And what we can see here is that the sawfish that we tagged in these areas have basically stayed in these same areas. So if we tagged a sawfish near this one little mangrove island and we have a receiver nearby, that sawfish, so this one in particular, has almost continuously stayed in this area. So that's great information that we didn't have before. Here is another example of some telemetry tracks that we've had. This is from a larger juvenile sawfish. This is from about a 2-meter sawfish. And the red dot is where we initially tagged it. And then all of these little teal balloons are other locations that we have picked up this sawfish. So you can see that it's moved large distances. So all the way from South Florida, and it's moved all the way up the west coast of Florida into Charlotte Harbor, which is excellent information. Again, this is information that we never had before acoustic telemetry. So this data is really exciting for us. So what do we know about juvenile sawfish from acoustic telemetry? Where do they spend their time? If you can see, this is a juvenile sawfish right here. It blends in very well to the bottom. And what we know is that juvenile sawfish spend a lot of time in shallow water, usually less than 3 feet, and in estuarine water. So estuarine water being a mix of salt and fresh water, so it's more of a brackish water. Juvenile sawfish rely on red mangroves. These are a bunch of small mangroves here, and their prop root systems. So small juvenile sawfish, this is an example. This is only about a 2-foot sawfish that was recently born. So we call this an age 0 sawfish. So this is probably just a few months old here. And you can see with the type of water in this area, these sawfish blend in very well. These shallow waters make very good habitat for them. These root systems, these are called prop roots of red mangroves. And then these little sticks standing up are called nematophores. And those are the root systems of black mangroves. And these have become, or we've found that these have become very important for juvenile sawfish because they can use these as refuge from predators. Mangroves serve as a great nursery area for little fish, so it provides food for sawfish. So these shallow areas near mangroves are very important for sawfish. And we've learned that with our gillnet data, as well as the acoustic telemetry that shows that these sawfish really don't move very far from where we have originally tagged them. Now, on the contrary, these are adult sawfish. So smalltooth sawfish can be about 17 feet long at their maximum, which I have never seen one that big. I've only seen about a 14-foot sawfish, which is still a huge sawfish. And these are some photos of adults here. Adults live in very different environments. They can be found in coastal environments up to 600 feet, whereas I just told you those little sawfish like to stay in about 3 feet or less. But you can see how large that rostrum can be and how big this body can be. And just here's an example to show you the size of sawfish. So this is a diver next to a sawfish, and it's quite large. And this is an excellent photo. These sawfish were actually seen aggregating off of the coast of Jupiter last year. And that's also some very exciting data for us scientists. And now I'm going to just share a few sawfish facts with you. So in 2016, we were very privileged to witness the wild birth of sawfish, and this is the first time this has ever happened. So you are looking at the first photographs of sawfish being pupped in the wild. So the photo that you're looking at right now, this is the cloaca of the female, and this is the mother, and then these are the rostrum, those long snouts and the teeth of 2 baby sawfish. So they are belly to belly. And this is a sawfish that was being born. So we caught this female and we were doing some tagging. I was getting ready to put in one of those acoustic tags. And we rolled her over and realized that she was getting ready to, if not in the middle of pupping. And so we took the opportunity to take photos. So this is one pup coming out. So now we know that sawfish are born rostrum first. And here's the rostrum of a second pup that is ready to be born. And when sawfish are born, you might be wondering how they don't hurt the mother with all of those sharp teeth. And something that is very cool is that sawfish have this gelatinous type of material that covers the teeth. So it's like a protective sheath, and it's kind of hard and jelly-like. And here's a good up close. You can see these little white bits. Those are the teeth. And then you can see this protective covering over the teeth. So eventually that protective covering will fall off and expose the teeth, but this is how the babies don't hurt the mom as they are being born. And this is just a photo to show you the size of the sawfish. This is the mother here. This is a rostrum coming out, and then this is the baby. So the babies are only about 2 feet when they are born, and this was a 14-foot sawfish. So you can see the huge size difference. Just a couple more fun sawfish facts. Sawfish evolved from primitive sharks in the fossil records about 56 million years ago. It's a really long time. And they really haven't changed much in terms of their morphology or their body shapes. Small-tooth sawfish can give birth to about 7 to 14 pups at one time. And their teeth, they have unpaired teeth. So on either side of the saw, they can have between 22 and 29 teeth. And teachers, I encourage you to visit the Sawfish Conservation Society website. These are really great infographics, and they have other great information about sawfish on that website if you are interested in learning just a little bit extra. So what can you do to help sawfish? How can you help and recover their population? Well, one thing that you can do is to help keep their environment clean. This is a photo of all of the trash that we picked up from one of our sampling locations. So if you can imagine, you don't want to live in an area where it's dirty and trashy and, you know, people are just throwing their trash out. Neither do sawfish or other fish like these lemon sharks. So be environmentally conscious. So please throw away your trash. If you happen to go to the beach, please pick up trash. And another great way to help is to report any sawfish that you see. So if you happen to take a vacation down to Florida and you're fishing and you see a sawfish, the best thing to do is you don't want to touch it. You don't want to try to capture it. It's actually illegal to do that. But what you do want to do is call this number at the bottom, the 1-800-4-SAWFISH, and let us know where you've seen sawfish, because as scientists, we're still figuring out where sawfish are, and if they're expanding their range, we need to know that, and the best way to do that is through public help. So you can be a scientist as well. You can be a citizen scientist, and you can help us by reporting any sawfish that you have seen. And with that, I will take any questions from you.
All right, thank you so much. I feel like we should call you Dr. Sawfish.
I'll take that name.
All right, so what we're going to do is we'll take 2 questions from each class. So we will start with Miss Bradbury's class. We have some 7th graders from Highland Park Junior High. Oh, we're not able to hear you. All right, so what we'll do, actually, if you just go ahead and type your question into the group chat, we'll take 2 questions from Little's class. We have Miss Little's class, 6th graders. And then we will get Miss Bradbury's class questions, which are chatted in. All right, so Miss Little. Yeah, we lost Miss Bradbury's class.
Uh-oh.
All right, so we will, okay, so we have a question from Miss Little's class. Why is it important, you can see it on the side. Why is it important, in your opinion, to protect sharks and sawfish?
That's a great question. As you can see just from looking at a sawfish, they are a very unique creature. There's nothing else like them in the world. And we want to protect that, right? We want to protect it for the future generations. And also, these sharks and sawfish and other rays and other sharks, they all play very important roles within an ecosystem. They all play their part. And if those roles are removed, we don't know what the consequences are. So we want to protect these animals, make sure that they are holding their role in basically keeping the ecosystem functioning.
All right, and we have one from Ms. Bradbury's class. How does the sheath develop in the mother's belly?
That's an excellent question, and that is a question I can't answer because we don't know. We do not know that. The sawfish birth that we saw in 2016 was actually the first hard evidence that there is a sheath on there. So that is a great question and something that we would love to find out in the future.
Awesome. See, reason for more research.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so then why don't we go ahead and we can get some questions from Mr. Pennington's class. We have some 8th graders from Lockerman Middle School.
Hello.
Hi.
What or who has inspired you to do this kind of line of work?
What has inspired me?
Or who?
Or who? There are some great female scientists out there. One is the late Dr. Eugenie Clark, who was the shark lady. I remember reading about her at a young age, and she was really a pioneer of women in science and shark research. So I was really inspired by her. And I always had a love of the water. Fishing with my dad and my grandpa growing up really had me interested in fisheries. And as I was doing those internships, those marine science internships, it really solidified for me that I want to preserve fish. I want to help conserve them and keep things sustainable so we can continue to enjoy fish in the future.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question.
Do we have another one from Mr. Pennington's class?
Yeah.
Awesome.
What was your favorite subject in middle school?
In middle school, it was biology. I am a scientist through and through. That was my favorite class. I was interested in everything, biology, and it was the class that I excelled the most in. So I'm a scientist all the way.
Awesome. Great questions so far. So we have two, one from Miss Little's class. Will the oceans be able to produce enough oxygen for us in the next 50 years? See if you can tackle that.
Oh, that's a tough question. That's an excellent question. And I'm not sure I can answer that fully because you might be inspired by climate change to have asked that question as we are running into these issues currently. I think it is something that we're going to have to wait and see. We, as the public, can help out climate change and help reduce our carbon emissions and reduce, single-use plastics and things like that. I hope the oceans can produce enough oxygen, but I can't say with certainty if they will or not. Let's hope so. We want to keep our fish around, right?
Right. So next up, we'll get some questions from Miss Nursamuli's class. And while they're getting ready, we have another one online which says, how many estimated sawfish are there in America?
That is an excellent question. And that is another question I unfortunately cannot answer because we just don't have that estimate. Unfortunately, whenever we realized that the population was so low, we didn't have any information on them. And so we are just now getting, we have a 9-year data set that we're working on. And we actually have a graduate student who is working on figuring out what the population structure is. So I can't even give you a roundabout answer because we as scientists still don't know what the population is.
All right.
Excellent question, though.
Yes. Excellent question. More reason for people to get into the field of science. All right. So let's go ahead over to Elders Mills Public School with some 5th graders. Well, you just have to take yourself off mute. All right.
You know how a sawfish can like detect like fish? Why can't they detect the nets that are coming?
That's a good question. We've actually seen sawfish avoid nets, and I think it's more of a visual thing. So with the electroreception, they pick up little electrical pulses. Nets don't give off electrical pulses. So if you move your arm, a fish moves, those all give off electrical pulses. A net just sits in the water. But we have seen sawfish come up to a net, and if it's in really clear water, they will turn and avoid it. But at the point of turning, as you can see with this sawfish rostrum, these teeth, if you get one tooth just stuck in a net, that's all it takes for these animals to get caught. Good question.
Thank you.
Awesome. So we'll take one more question from that class, and then we'll go to Miss Diamond's class.
When you catch the sawfish in the nets, can't they like cut off the nets with their like rostrum teeth?
They don't. They actually get more entangled than anything. So we actually have to come in with scissors, and we'll just cut up the rostrum, and we'll just cut the net right off of it, because to us, we can replace the net easy enough. But unfortunately, the sawfish rostrum is what you would say is the Achilles heel of sawfish demise, because they get so easily tangled within a net.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Great questions so far. So now we'll take a couple from Miss Diamond's class. So we have some 7th graders from St. Genevieve Middle School.
Okay. Are the sharks aggressive, and what precautions do you have to take when catching them?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Oh. Are the sharks aggressive, and what precautions do you have to take when catching them?
Are the sawfish aggressive? Sawfish are not aggressive. They don't go after people. But like any animal, if you capture it and you get it in a fight, hold the tail, and this is enough for the small ones that we work with, the 2 to 5 foot sawfish. That is enough to prevent it from slashing. Now we have had some sawfish that are extra. Oh,
I'm sorry, we lost you for a moment. I'm sorry, we lost you for a moment.
We have
maybe in the internet connection. Could you just repeat your answer? Sorry.
Yes, no, it's okay. I said sawfish they're not aggressive. They don't actively go after people, but if you, like any other animal, if you capture it, it's probably going to go into a fight or flight response. And so we do have precautions that we take for sawfish. We're working with the little ones, the babies. So these are between 2 feet and 5 feet, sometimes a little bit bigger. So what we do is we have 2 people with the sawfish at all times. We have someone hold the sawfish at the base of the rostrum. Actually, here's a better thing. We have someone hold the sawfish right here at the base behind the teeth. And then we have someone hold the tail like this. And with the small guys, that's enough to restrain them and prevent them from slashing their saw side to side, which could hurt us.
Great, thank you so much. Do we have another question from Ms. Diamond's class?
Yes.
Go ahead.
What activities could we get involved in as middle schoolers to prepare for being marine biology?
Ooh, I didn't catch that, Leanne. Did you hear what she asked?
No, sorry.
What activities could we do as middle schoolers to prepare for being a marine biologist?
Oh, that's a really great question. Okay. What activities can you do? Spreading the word and being future scientists, being interested in it, being interested in your environment and helping out. There's all kinds of outreach opportunities. There's all kinds of infographics that you can do, and just talking to your friends and talking to your parents and you know, expressing the importance of sawfish and keeping them around is something that you can absolutely do. And be interested in science. Science is fantastic. You can learn so much cool stuff from it.
Yes, it is. So I want to thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who joined us. So thank you, and hello to all schools around the world.
Thanks, everybody.
And thank you everyone for watching on YouTube, and stay tuned for some more of our Google Hangouts, and be sure to check out Sharks for Kids online for resources, activities, and more. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye, Dr. Andrea Kroetz.